Hey y'all, I wanted to do a long-term review and update on my 2020 Stumpjumper short travel. Now this was actually purchased in 2019 at the end of the year, so I've had it roughly 3 years, and it has since been converted to the long travel version of the Stumpjumper, and it has 140, 130 suspension now. I have the long travel yoke in the back, and I have upgraded the shock to the RockShox Deluxe Ultimate. It's just the single barrel, doesn't have the piggyback on it, but that does pretty well for Florida and some mountain riding up at the downhill parks in the southeast. I haven't had an issue with it, except for certain situations where I probably would have just rented a downhill bike. But I want to go over this because this generation has pretty much the same characteristics from 2019 to the current year model, which is 2022 to 2023. And I want to show you how I sort of improve the riding. And this is going to be more specifically for anybody who has the short travel, but the same sort of things can be done to the standard Stumpjumper now because they don't have the short travel version anymore. It's just one Stumpjumper and the Evo. I think the standard Stumpjumper is also 130, 140 now, and the Evo is like a 160. So I was actually inspired by the Evo, and I wanted to sort of create an Evo out of my Stumpjumper. And it being the short travel, the first thing I had to do was get the long travel yoke. So this will work perfectly fine so long as you also upgrade the shock. So you can't do just one or the other, you have to do both of them to get that long travel in the back. I also upgraded the fork because I believe on the short travel version we had a 120 in the front and a 110 in the back. So it doesn't sound like a huge amount of difference in travel, but I guess the geometry does change quite a bit. And I'm going to go over that as well because I changed the geometry using the flip chip, and I want to discuss that later on in the video. So I changed the fork, I changed the yoke and the shock, and I also raised the stack on this specific fork. Now I got this fork secondhand, and I don't have much more to play with here. So if you have like a uncut fork, for instance, you'll have a lot more stack to mess with, and playing with the stack will allow for more playful riding, in my opinion. Now in Florida, I don't ride this on the trail at all. I use this only for jumping and jibbing, essentially. If I want to ride on the trail, I have a cross-country bike right there, and it does the job way better than a slacked trail bike, borderline enduro bike. So I just want to let you know, if you do alter your bike, I don't think that most people in Florida need to alter their bike as much because they're mainly riding Florida trails and they're not riding them that hard. In fact, most people could probably benefit from a cross-country bike. But that being said, making the geometry more slack will be more playful if you know how to ride a bike. So that's why I did it. And I wanted to have it be more playful on jumps. Typically the Stumpjumper does, as much as the title sounds like it does not like jumping. It's a very planted bike, and if you watch any reviews from the bigger publishers out there, a lot of the input on it is the fact that the thing is very planted, and I can attest to that. It's very planted, especially in its stock form, especially with the flip chip set to high. But okay, now I want to get to the flip chip. I've been riding this bike for 3 years, and I haven't even changed the tires on it. These things are getting pretty worn down, pretty crusty, but I just will ride them until they're completely decimated, apparently. And so 3 years of riding it as a sort of short to medium travel trail bike. For the longest time, I rode it with the short travel in the back and the 140 up front. As of recent, I have changed it to long travel, but yeah, I have not messed with the flip chip at all. And I'm going to a new park called Jared's Place. So I wanted to not only try it for up there, but just for general purpose riding. And I have to say that the flip chip does a lot more than I would have thought. So if you have the flip chip and you're looking for a more lively feeling bike or a more confident feeling bike on things like drops and jumps and things where you don't want to feel like you're over your front end, you want to kind of feel more centered on the bike, the flip chip actually does make a huge difference. It made such a huge difference that I had this whole bike taken apart and I cleaned out the bearings and everything. I did a service on it. And that's whenever I changed the flip chip. Whenever I put it back together and got on the bike, I thought that I put the pedals on backwards or the cranks on backwards because it felt so much different than what I was used to. So it does make a huge difference, and it makes handling and jumping on the bike a lot more confident and inspiring. I just think that the stock Stumpjumper needs a little bit of help, and these things that I've done, making it a little bit more slack and a little bit more playful, made a huge difference. I think I might put a 27.5 wheel on the back as my final hurrah with the bike. And then at that point, if it doesn't feel like it is providing me a huge improvement or anything, I'll probably end up getting a new frame set. Some of the negatives about this bike, I gotta say, are probably the most noticeable is the weight. It's a very heavy bike, even with a nice set of wheels. These are the Stans Flow wheel set with i9 hubs and everything, and they're probably about the same. They're nearly the same weight as a carbon set of wheels, and that didn't make much of a difference in how the bike felt. It's kind of a dead feeling bike. Like, some people love that feeling, and I've grown to really like it. I just wish the bike was a little bit more poppy and active. So yeah, this bike, it does really well in a elevated terrain where you're actually getting to unleash the power of it and feel its weight and how well balanced it is. But if you're pedaling it around as like a cross-country bike, it's really not the best option. Now, this is the alloy version. I want to make that known. This is the alloy version. This is not the carbon version. So if you have the carbon version, I can't speak to that bike. I know that the newer carbon version doesn't have the horse link. And actually my cross-country bike has the same style where it's got a flex stay, and the cross-country bike with flex stays is a beast on cross-country. This one, not so much, but this Stumpjumper is probably the best all-around bike you could get. I don't have many negatives. Like I said, it's really just the weight and the way it feels planted. That's pretty much the only negative, but I've probably become a stronger rider because of it, because I have to really overcompensate with the bike to make it move. So all the other positives, how it can handle a bunch of different trail styles, Not to say that I won't do like a big cross country ride on this, but since I have my other bike, I won't anymore. But it's totally capable of it. Throw a lighter set of tires on it and put it in a short travel configuration, because you could even take the long travel version and make it short travel. So very versatile bike, and I love this thing. I don't think I'll ever get rid of the frame or anything. So we'll just see how it goes, and maybe I'll have it in another couple of years. But really, with an alloy bike, I think the max you really want to ride them is probably 5 years or so, because eventually they get fatigued, just the same as carbon. So I'll probably end up getting a new frame just to be safe and try something new, because that's kind of what life's about. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments down below. Don't forget to go out there and create your own adventure however you can. Spread some positivity. I'll see you on the next one.